Welcome back. Now we're going to look at the challenges of implementing AI successfully and what you need to look out for and be mindful of. And Joe, you've obviously done this numerous times. You've had dozens and dozens of clients. I think these are some of the most pressing things, but I feel like the biggest topic that a organization has to wrap its head around to implement successfully AI is understanding just what it is and what it is capable of doing. Is that a
Y-
fair statement?
Yeah, absolutely. You have to reach the conclusion that there's an opportunity to infuse AI in your business for success, right? Think of your business for a second, and the whole key is increase profitability, scale your business. Many of you may even thinking about exiting your business. So profitability, scaling, how fast you can do that, and the ability to exit your business if that's something you're interested in. How can AI help you do that? So once if you're here sitting and you're like, wow, AI, I see the opportunity. Joe and Chris, how do I infuse AI into my business for more profits, scale it faster? That's what you're going to consider in this case. What are the challenges behind that? Now, the first thing, which is kind of low hanging fruit, are these tools that are available today, like ChatGPT, Dolly 2, Midjourney, etc. Those tools are available. So the first thing I would be thinking about as a business owner, and I do this in my business as well, is how do I get the rest of the team involved? Right? Because this isn't something I'm going to do in a silo, right? I'm not going to be the only one going out there looking at what it takes to use this tool and improve our processes. So it's more of a culture thing in the beginning is going into your company and communicate this. This actually applies to the whole thing that we did with the storytelling and the communication piece is being able to go in to your employees and your staff and your teams and start having a conversation about AI and asking them how they feel about it. Are they fearful? Are they excited about it? Have they been using it? And tell me in your own experience. In my experience, I usually find kind of two people. There's like the person that is like, oh yeah, yeah, it's scary. And then there's also the person that's already using ChatGPT, right? Like
Mhm.
they're already using these things. So you want to have that conversation and get everybody on the same page that there's some opportunity here. So let's figure out what those opportunities are in your business. So first, when you talk about implementation, when I think of implementation in a business, I'm thinking about a process, and infusing an AI tool into that process, preferably in an automated fashion. Okay, so if you're having conversations with people in your team and your leadership, and you've identified places where AI could improve a process, the next step is to do a test, right? In the development world, we never just go build something and then launch it into the world, right? We test these things. We test whether we're going to get the results that we're expecting. And the way that we do that here is is through a pilot program. You're going to pilot AI. And I'll give you a couple of examples that in my own consulting, a couple of pilots that we're working on. I have a client who owns 3 pizza restaurants, and he's looking at an AI tool that basically answers the phone for him and takes the order and puts it through his point of sale system and automates that whole process of taking the order so that his employees don't need to be answering the phones. Now he's in the shore area here in New Jersey, so he's very busy in the summer with walk-in traffic, right? There's a lot of people walking in. So this would free up his staff to be able to serve the people in his restaurant as opposed to taking phone
Mhm.
orders.
Mhm.
So we investigate this, we see where AI fits in that whole process in his business, and then we go out and we look at vendors. We look at what tools are available, what vendors are providing these tools, and we see what options we have. We would then pick one and then go through a pilot program. So in the pilot program, you're not rolling this out to your entire system, right? So we pick one of his restaurants. We're going to run in on off-peak hours. integrate, implement the system, and see how it works. Is it meeting the expectations? Okay, what are the customers saying about this experience? Are they saying, "Oh, this is great. My order was 100% perfect. It sounded like I was talking to a human. I forgot I was talking to an AI. Like it was so good." Are they saying that, or are they saying, uh, this was like I just want to talk to a human, right? We always get that in the systems, right? I always want to press zero because I don't even want to hear what they have to say. I just want to hit zero and get to the human being, right? So this in the pilot process, we need to evaluate whether the technology is at a point where we can implement this in our business and get the results that we need. Does that make sense?
100%. I think you're talking, however, about a company that's brought on an AI consultant, somebody who can kind of make them aware of all of the different things that are available to them. What about somebody who's decided that they're going to go it alone? What do they have to understand about AI, or should they just not do it and go hire a consultant like you to do this? I mean, is there a path here for a company, for a leader, a small business owner to understand the limitations of AI? Is there enough material out there where they can kind of DIY this? There's not enough YouTube videos yet, showing you how to change your carburetor. I mean, like if you've got any problem with any of your gardening implements or anything like that, you can find a YouTube video for. Right now, it feels like they kind of need to reach out and find an expert.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is like anything in business that's the fastest way, right? Like if you're trying to solve a problem, the fastest way is to call somebody up that's already solved the problem and knows how to do it and can get you there fast. So that is the best way. It's not the only way. You can tackle this yourself and go out there. And what I would do in that case is, and this is what I would do, or any consultant in this industry, is we're going to identify the top problems for you, right? And really have a sense of what the return on investment is, right? Because, for example, I'll give you an idea about robotics. Same customer, actually. This is a good example. So same client is interested in using robotic technology to cook the food, cook the pizzas, right? And I said to him, look, I don't even have to spend a lot of time doing research on this. I can tell you that the tools are expensive. So you hear about companies like McDonald's who now have 100%, human, I don't know what the proper word is, but basically it's a restaurant with no humans there. Like everything is done through robotics and AI and automation. And it's just too expensive. Like the return on investment you're not going to see that. And in this case, it doesn't serve my customer, my client. McDonald's is a different story because they're piloting this stuff and they're getting on the front, they're getting ahead of this so that when they roll this out to, whatever hundreds of thousands of franchises they have, it's going to be cost effective in the long run. But for, your small mom and pop, business owner, robotics are not a feasible ROI investment right now. So it really, having a consultant will save you time because right off the bat, you don't have to investigate that. You can identify what's going to move the needle for you and the low-hanging fruit that's going to give you the best returns.
So whether or not you hire a consultant or you figure out a way in which you can do it, you have to teach your people what the values are, what AI can and cannot do. What about the data quality? And I don't know if this is necessarily something that would be applicable to the guy who has a pizza chain. But if you're trying to figure out like what the resistance level is to that, how do you maintain? Let's go back to that Microsoft thing we talked about earlier, Tay, right? It got all of its data based on going to the deepest recesses of Twitter, and suddenly it was like spouting just, toxic content, and Microsoft had to shut it down. The data was bad, so how do you, as a small business owner, make sure that you've got the right data set, that you're pulling from the right, data to be effective, to make your, whatever pilot you're developing a true snapshot of what AI could do for your business.
So you bring up the concept of data. I'll put that aside for just a minute. I want to emphasize one thing. So I was actually giving a talk to a group of business owners, and I had somebody in the audience that raised their hand for a question, and he says he owned a massage spa, like a massage spa, and he was telling me how he got this AI chatbot and they implemented it in on his website, and people were communicating with it and was telling them horrible things. Right, so it was giving them misinformation and telling them horrible things, and this guy was so turned off by AI. He's like, "We shut it down right away. I will not use AI. I'm done with this." And I thought that was very unfortunate because he's going to miss out on the opportunity thinking in that way. Now, when he implemented this tool, this should have come up way far earlier to determine that it was a no-go, right? So if you think about it this way, and I'll use his company as an example. If you're rolling out a tool like a chatbot, don't roll it out first. Like just put up a pilot and have your internal employees and teams use it and see how that goes. To ask them to try to break it. This is what we do in the software development space. Is we have testers, and even on small teams, we'll each assume these roles where we go in there and we're like, yeah, dude, just go in there, try to break my code. Like try to hack it, try to break it. And encourage people to go out there and do this before you release it into the world. And that's the importance of the pilot programs is even when you do release it, you don't do it on a full scale. You do it on a small controlled environment so you can evaluate it. And in a lot of cases, I'll tell you, we're probably piloting like 15, maybe close to 20 tools now. And each one of those tools, I'll tell you, at least 50% of them to me are disappointing. They're just not at the level that I need them to be in the business case to roll them out to be effective and increase the human experience. That's the bottom line. And you won't know that until you go through a small pilot to determine the effectiveness of it.
Well, I think you also have the issue of workforce and skill gap, not necessarily having the right people to implement some of these tools. You asked, earlier if, I could teach some of the stuff that I've done, the Z back here, with Midjourney. And I said, well, yeah, I mean, I could teach it, but there are other people who are better, capable of teaching it, but they don't know it yet. Like a lot of the creative directors don't quite know how to use this type of tool. And in the wrong hands, used poorly, as you were just saying, or not necessarily having kind of future-proofed the opportunity per se, you could screw it up and say, okay, well, I'm done. Well, I'm gonna just wash my hands of this whole thing and not get involved with AI anymore. So I do think like you have to be aware of your workforce, their knowledge of AI, their ability to use it well. That's a pretty key element too, to avoid any of the mishaps and make sure you have a successful implementation. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. Training is a huge piece of it. But before you get to the training, and this is a mistake a lot of people are making right now because they're jumping into the tools. Listen, first, determine whether the tool is going to be effective or not before you learn how to use the tool. Because you're going, think of any example. Think of ChatGPT. Think of Midjourney or DALL-E 2, the generation. I use Jasper. My team uses Jasper a lot. Before you even invest the time to learn how to use the tool, whether it's yourself or your staff or your team members, you have to be absolutely clear how it's going to work and what the benefit is. Number one, off the bat, you should be able to clearly communicate that to somebody else. And it could be a colleague, a peer, a consultant, whoever that is. They let them ask you, what does it do and how does that benefit your company? Right? Does it give you more time? Does it does it help you complete the task faster by either just reducing something that took like a day to do down to like an hour? Does it increase the completion? Does it decrease the completion time because it eliminates iteration back and forth to where you had to go like 2 or 3 days of iterations? Reduces that down. Does it reduce cost because now you don't need an expensive person to do something, right? Does it reduce cost, or does it improve the quality, right? Does it improve the quality of the customer experience? Does it improve the quality of an employee's, life or work-life balance? Where are these benefits? You have to be absolutely clear on that. And once you're clear on that, you can go ahead and start to learn how to use the tool or to invest in training for your staff and your team members to be able to use these tools and leverage them. But absolutely, that is a huge part, is the training part.
Well, I think the next piece of that is also change management. How do you, because some of it is retraining, right? And I think that we know that businesses without understanding, especially with something like this that is moving at, 100 miles an hour, right? It's just like change is constant. And if you don't have a theory or a strategy for change management for how to deal with your employees, how to make sure that everybody's kind of on board with these new tasks, you've got to learn a new skill, perhaps, as an employee, or you have to be willing to let go of something that you once did. How does an organization that wants a successful AI implementation handle change management?
Through awareness and support. When you are dedicated and committed to your team's happiness and success, and as a business owner, that's what I believe in, is I'm committed to my employees' success and their happiness, bottom line. So if they're in a role where, hey, look, we don't need that task anymore because we're going to do it in a different way. Now we need to reskill them. It's my responsibility as a business owner to reskill them into a new role in which they're going to be able to do a task that is going to benefit our company. And there's a huge opportunity here. There's so many opportunities for people. I was working with a Fortune 100 company a little while back, and they had a large number of call center employees that they needed to, they just didn't need them anymore. Financially, they could afford to keep them, but they needed to move them into a different role. And that involved reskilling them and teaching new skills to now they can use some of these tools and technology to do things even better. And you're also you're giving people the skills to survive in, what we would call the new world now, right? It's this new AI world. I have small children too. It's like, we think about our kids, like, what's it going to be like, in 10 years or even in next year? Like, if you're in college right now and you're graduating college, like, what are you thinking? Like, what should you really be learning to do right now?
Well, that's an interesting question, because I think one of the big issues with the introduction of ChatGPT was students using, ChatGPT to write essays, and then suddenly, schools basically outlawing it and banning it and saying nobody can use it, which I don't know if is necessarily the right, outcome, but it may be all that a small school is really able to wrap their head around. They can't really figure out, how do we reskill our teachers to now deal with this particular new tool. I want to jump to ethics as it relates to the successful implementation of AI. Um, a lot of times AI systems can, get things wrong. We talked about Tay. There's a thing, something called Compass, which is an algorithm used to predict criminal recidivism in the U.S. and it has been accused of racism, bias, ethics, etc. There is this kind of difficult line that you have to sort of figure out when you're building these systems of how do you've got a machine here and it's making decisions and value judgments, et cetera, based on what you fed into it, but also based on the material that it's getting elsewhere. So where do ethics and bias fit into? How do we guard against them so that we can have a successful AI integration?
Yeah, this gets back to the responsibility of the business leadership and implementing these systems, right? I think back, this reminds me of years ago when law enforcement was using facial recognition to identify, past criminals and things like that. And then there was people being profiled that were actually innocent, but coming up as a false detection in the facial recognition. So police were saying, like the police officers that were out in the field would say, oh, well, the facial rec is showing, this person is a criminal, and they would go after them when indeed the system misclassified them as being a criminal. And people were treated unjustly because of that. So a lot of law enforcement agencies stopped using it. Now it's better. Now it's a lot better. But the important part here is the training involved, right? It's number one, understanding the imperfections and the limits behind the AI technology. As a business leader, you need to understand that. So in this case, the leadership there should have understood that here's how good the technology is, right? It's only, it can only identify somebody with 80% confidence. Well, if that's the case, then you got to make the call and say, you know what, we're going to use this tool, but we're going to use it with a grain of salt. Right, we're going to use this as very, very high level guidance, and there's not going to be processes in place where it's like automatically decide to do things based on it. It's going to be used with other systems that tie together in with this. And if we have multiple sources telling us that this person is a criminal or reaches some kind of decision, then maybe we'll move forward to the next step. But once you understand the limits and capabilities and biases that are associated with some of these models, is then you have to look at the process and make sure your process is handling that. And finally, you have to train the people that are using this to understand that this is not perfect. Right? And the same applies with ChatGPT. As somebody that's first using ChatGPT, if they don't know that this could create false information, right, they're going to go ahead believing every single thing that's coming out of this tool. And now, if this is somebody that's writing emails or publishing articles or social media posts, and now they're posting things that aren't true, you better have a system or process in place where somebody's approving this before it goes out, and you're training staff members to make sure they understand.
I would agree. I think that is like it's an absolute 100% top down priority. And again, I would go back to, you see a different type of leader in the AI sphere. Like Sam Altman is a different type of leader than I think the social guys were, like Zuck and Dorsey, and they were whatever you think of them, they just did not have the same need to understand this as an ethical, like the techno-ethical piece of everything. It is an important part of AI, and you have to bring that to bear. I also, on that note, I think trust and transparency, and I guess the big question I have for you is like, how much do you tell your clients about how much of the work that you are doing for them is driven by AI? And I know you're fairly, transparent about this, but I guess asking this somewhat rhetorically, what part of this process do you want to disclose that you are using AI for, and what part don't you? And I'm thinking about a credit card company that was asked to make, lending decisions, and they used AI for it. And people were like, well, why did I get turned down, et cetera, because that just doesn't make any particular sense. That then makes the customer lose faith and distrust the company. So how do you navigate that line?
Yeah, so a couple things there. So the first one's explainability. So explainability is a challenge that we've faced in the research community for many years, right? And this is still being addressed. But a lot of these models, they don't explain to you how they reach the conclusion. So, take facial recognition, for example, is, you can run through facial recognition and it pops out criminal, there's a picture of criminal. There's no explanation why. There's no reasons why. This is just, it's a 90% match and it looks like, this person. Same thing with other systems like ChatGPT. I mean, it doesn't tell you why it gave you the answer it gave you. So explainability is still cloudy water there, just in general at a lower level. But the transparency of using AI is a whole nother issue. I actually got this question not too long ago at a conference. I had a woman who ran a marketing agency, and she's like, do you think I should tell my clients that I'm using AI? And I said, first, you know what, I'm not an attorney. Maybe you should consult with an attorney for that, legal issues. But I said, if it was me, absolutely, 100%. I'm telling them, because number one, I want to also kind of put in sort of wave the, have a conversation with them, first of all, to see how they feel about that, right? And make sure that they understand why I'm using this, right? Because it's to their benefit. It's gonna help them save money. It's gonna give them better quality results. It's gonna get them results in a faster turnaround time, right? So a business can relate to that. They can say, "Great, this service here, you're saving me money. It's getting it to me faster, and it's better. That's awesome. Okay, well." Now, if you're on board with it, now I want to make sure that you're also sharing in the benefits. I'm just not doing this to increase my own profits. Now you have to have a conversation about what the capabilities are. So if you're producing content for them, they got to sign off that yes, they know that this has been created with AI, and if there's any copyright implications that come along with that, that's their responsibility. Right? Because the worst thing, if I was running a marketing agency, the worst thing I would want to do is create some piece of content and then give it to a client as if I wrote it myself. Right? And I think this is really getting to the core of what's going on in the schools, is that it's not that students are using AI to write their papers. It's that they're not saying they're writing AI, they're using AI to write their papers. Like, if you make it a rule, you're not allowed to use AI for this, just like a company could make it a rule that I'm not going to use a marketing agency if they're going to use AI, or that I don't want those products. Then at that point, it's a matter of being truthful and honest of how you're getting to that point. So absolutely 100%. I believe in being transparent, having the conversations with your clients, and letting them be a part of that process.
Well, I've got a couple more things here, but it seems to me like, you've got to figure out how to integrate with your existing systems. You've got to understand the regulatory environment, all sorts of other things. But it seems to me the conclusion I'm drawing is that we need a cadre of AI Jedis, basically, to come into an organization. Like, you almost need to, whether or not it's somebody you're bringing in from outside or somebody that you're appointing as your change agent of record, whatever. It feels to me like somebody has got to be a watchdog over all these different pieces to make sure that you have a successful AI implementation. Easiest way to deal with that is to hire somebody like you to come in and manage, an integration. But But if short of that, it does feel to me like you've got to like sort of find somebody and say, you're going to be our organizational Jedi, and you're going to have to learn all of this stuff, and you're going to have to like tune in to Chris and Joe talk AI, so you can learn all the bits and pieces. Because it doesn't seem to me that without a kind of a change agent or whatever you might want to call them, without somebody driving the bus, maybe that could be the CEO. If the CEO wants to really kind of dive in and understand it, maybe you create a chief CIO or chief AI officer, CAIO, right?
Yeah, we do offer a fractional chief chief AI officer, CAIO services, and that is a role. Depends on the business, right? Depends on how large the business is and what. But often, especially for smaller businesses, it's just appointing somebody who's going to be, kind of this AI leader, or create a task force and assign somebody that's really into this, really interested to see the opportunities. And you bring up a good point, Chris, about there's like, if you look at any business, there's probably 1,000 ways to use AI. Like, I bet if we sat down with any business, we can make a list of 1,000 ways to use AI. How do you focus, right? What do you tackle first? How do you prioritize? I think it's forget about AI for a second and just think about your business and think about what the biggest pain point is for you, or the biggest goal that you have right now in your business to grow. I often tell clients of mine, there's kind of 3 areas we look at. First is marketing. The second one is sales. And then the third one is the customer experience. So it depends on the business. We first look at marketing. If you're getting so many leads right now that you can't handle it, that you can't close the sales, we're not going to think about AI for marketing. We're going to go into AI for sales. We're going to see how you can scale some of your processes so that you can close all these leads that are coming in for you. If you're getting so many leads and you're selling, your products and services, and you're growing this whole customer base, but the experience, the customer experience is failing, or your operations is falling short. You're getting customer service requests, and people are upset about things, or there's flaws in your operation systems. Well, then we're going to go into that part of the business and work on that part of the business. So it all depends on what you really need in your business will drive where you focus on in AI.
Well, that I think is basically looking at it from the perspective of, how do I acquire customers and how do I retain customers, and how can AI help that? And I think ROI is also a key piece of that. You want to make sure that you are constantly putting the customer first, and that's something that I think you can build with the proper AI implementation. We got tons more to talk about with you guys in AI for business, but that'll do it for right now. I would just like to thank Joe Papa for coming and lending his wisdom, and if you guys need any training in the field of AI, Truversity.com, Truversity.com is the place to go. Joe, do you have any closing thoughts for those who are thinking about implementing AI?
Well, first, Chris, thanks for talking about this. This is exciting. I've been in the world of technology for a long time, and I've seen, everything, and as you've seen as well, cell phone, the personal computer. I mean, that was back, the birth of the personal computer, cell phone, cellular phones, the internet, all this technology that's come out. And I have to say that never before have I seen the excitement and the possibilities behind AI and this technology. So regardless of how you feel about it, just be curious and explore, because the opportunities are there.
On that note, thanks for joining us, and we'll see you soon.